My grandmother rewrote her will the day after she met my fiancé. My cousins didn't know why until the funeral. I should have seen it coming. My grandmother, Helena Thornwood, wasn't the type of woman who did anything without calculation. She'd built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing, survived 3 husbands, and could smell weakness like a shark detecting blood and water. At 89, she was sharper than most people half her age, with eyes that could strip the lies off you like paint thinner. When I called to tell her I was engaged, there was a pause on the line. Not the happy, tearful silence you'd expect, just quiet calculation. "Bring him to Sunday dinner," she said finally. "I want to meet the man who caught you." Caught. Not won over. Not fell in love with. Caught. I should have paid attention to her word choice. My fiancé's name was Bennett Cole. We'd met 2 years earlier at a corporate retreat where I was presenting on market analysis, and he was representing his family's investment firm. He had the kind of smile that made you forget your own name, dark hair that fell just right, and a way of looking at you like you were the only person in the room worth talking to. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Within a year, he proposed on a beach in Santorini with a ring that cost more than my car. My mother cried happy tears. My father shook his hand and welcomed him to the family. My 2 brothers clapped him on the back and talked about golf weekends. Everyone loved Bennett, except it turned out my grandmother. That Sunday dinner was in March. I remember because the cherry trees in her estate garden were just starting to bloom, and Bennett kept commenting on how beautiful everything was. Her house sat on 12 acres outside Greenwich, a stone mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from the English countryside. We arrived at 5 p.m. sharp. My grandmother didn't tolerate lateness. She met us in the foyer wearing a cream silk blouse and pearls, her white hair pulled back in her signature chignon. She looked Bennett up and down the way a jeweler examines a suspicious diamond. "So, you're the investment banker," she said. "Not a question." "Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to finally meet you. I've heard so many wonderful things." Bennett extended his hand. She looked at it for a moment before shaking. Her grip was firm, the handshake lasting exactly 2 seconds. I'd seen her do this hundreds of times. It was her measuring tool. "We'll see," she said, then turned and walked toward the dining room. "Dinner is ready. Don't let it get cold." The meal was uncomfortable from the start. My grandmother sat at the head of the table, me on her right, Bennett on her left. The dining room could seat 20, but it was just the 3 of us under the crystal chandelier, being served by her longtime housekeeper, Pilar. "Tell me about your family," my grandmother said, as Pilar set down the first course, French onion soup. Bennett smiled, completely at ease. "My father runs Cole Investment Group. We specialize in private equity and venture capital. My mother sits on several nonprofit boards. I have one sister, Vanessa. She's a corporate attorney in Manhattan." "And your grandparents?" "Both deceased, unfortunately. My father's parents passed when I was young. My mother's mother died last year. My grandmother sipped her wine. What did they do before they died?" "My grandfather on my father's side was in manufacturing, steel mostly. Built the business from nothing during the Depression. My grandmother on my mother's side was a homemaker." Homemaker. My grandmother repeated the word like it was a specimen under glass. "And your father's business, did he build it or inherit it?" I jumped in. "Grandmother, Bennett's family background is—" She held up one finger. I fell silent. In her house, that gesture was law. Bennett didn't seem bothered. He inherited the foundation but grew it substantially. Turned a $50 million portfolio into $2 billion over 30 years. Impressive numbers. She paused. "What's your client retention rate?" "Excuse me." "Client retention. How many clients does your firm lose annually versus gain?" Bennett's smile flickered, just for a second. "I don't have those exact figures memorized. You work in investments and don't know your retention rate. Not a question, a statement of fact, delivered like a knife between ribs." The soup course ended in silence. During the main course, roasted duck with cherry reduction, my grandmother shifted tactics. "My granddaughter tells me you proposed in Greece." "Yes, ma'am. Santorini. We watched the sunset from our villa. Expensive trip, worth every penny." He reached across to squeeze my hand. My grandmother's eyes followed the gesture. "And the ring. Where did you purchase it?" "Tiffany, Fifth Avenue location. May I see it?" I extended my hand. She pulled reading glasses from her pocket and examined the ring with the intensity of a gemologist. The diamond was 2 carats, emerald cut, platinum setting. Bennett had been so proud when he showed me the receipt. "Pretty," she said finally, handing my hand back like returning a library book. "What did it cost?" "Grandmother." I felt my face flush. "It's a fair question. I'm curious what my granddaughter is worth in his estimation." Bennett's jaw tightened. 35,000. She nodded slowly. "And your annual income?" "I don't think that's—" "My granddaughter stands to inherit a substantial portion of my estate. I think it's reasonable to understand the financial position of the man she's marrying. Unless you'd prefer she sign a prenuptial agreement." The silence was deafening. Even Pilar, who had seen 40 years of my grandmother's dinner tactics, looked uncomfortable as she cleared plates. "I make $450,000 annually," Bennett said stiffly, "plus bonuses that typically run another 200,000. I think that's more than sufficient to provide for your granddaughter." "Sufficient?" My grandmother smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. That's exactly the word I would have chosen. Dessert was tiramisu. No one ate much. After dinner, my grandmother asked Bennett to wait in the library while she walked me to the garden. The cherry blossoms glowed pink in the twilight. "You're not marrying him," she said. "Excuse me?" "That man. You're not marrying him." "Grandmother, I don't know what you think you saw, but I saw everything I needed to see." She stopped beside her prized rose bushes, the ones she'd cultivated for 30 years. He didn't know his client retention rate because he doesn't work closely enough with the business to know. That's a basic metric any serious investment banker would have memorized. He couldn't maintain eye contact when discussing his finances. And that ring? What about it? It's not from Tiffany. It's a very good replica, but the setting is slightly off. The proportions are wrong. I've purchased enough jewelry in my lifetime to know the difference. She turned to face me fully. "Your fiancé is a liar and not a particularly skilled one. The only reason you haven't noticed is because you're in love." "Love makes smart women stupid." I felt like I'd been slapped. "You spent 2 hours with him. You don't know him like I do. I know men like him. I've buried 3 husbands, remember? I know exactly what it looks like when someone loves your money more than they love you. That's cruel and unfair. Perhaps, but I'm also right." She pulled a business card from her pocket. "This is a private investigator I've used for years. Discreet, thorough, expensive. Use him or don't. But I'm changing my will tomorrow morning. If you marry this man, you'll inherit nothing. Not the estate, not the business shares, not the trust fund, nothing." I stared at her in shock. My grandmother's estate was worth approximately $180 million. My inheritance was supposed to be around $30 million, split with my brothers and cousins. That money represented security, freedom, the ability to pursue the career I wanted without worrying about finances. "You're blackmailing me. I'm protecting you." She pressed the business card into my hand. "Love makes us blind. Money makes us see clearly. Give yourself 2 weeks with that investigator. If I'm wrong, I'll change the will back and apologize at your wedding. But if I'm right," she paused. "If I'm right, you'll thank me one day." I drove home in silence. Bennett asked 3 times what was wrong. I told him I had a headache. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom with the investigator's business card. The guy's name was Richard Novak. The card was simple, just a name and phone number. No company name, no website, the kind of person you called when you needed answers you couldn't get legally. I told myself I wouldn't call. My grandmother was paranoid, bitter from bad marriages, unable to trust anyone. Bennett loved me. He'd shown me in 1,000 small ways over 2 years. The way he'd hold my coat, remember my coffee order, text good morning every single day, introduced me to his family and friends. But at 3 a.m., I found myself Googling Cole Investment Group. The website looked professional. Photos of a glass office building in Manhattan, team bios, client testimonials. Bennett's photo showed him in a sharp suit, smiling confidently. His bio listed Columbia Business School, 10 years in private equity, specialized expertise in tech startups. I clicked through to the About page. The firm was founded in 1989 by Warren Cole. Current assets under management, $2.1 billion. Office locations in New York, London, and Hong Kong. Everything checked out. I searched for news articles, found several mentions of Warren Cole at charity galas and industry conferences. Nothing about Bennett specifically, but that wasn't unusual for someone mid-level in the company. At 4 a.m., I called the investigator's number. It went to voicemail. Mr. Novak. My name is Catherine Thornwood. My grandmother Helena gave me your card. I'd like to hire you for a background check. Please call me back. I left my number and hung up. He called at 8 a.m. His voice was gravelly, like he smoked too much or didn't sleep enough. Miss Thornwood, your grandmother mentioned you might call. My rate is $500 an hour plus expenses. I require a $5,000 retainer. For that, I'll run a complete background check, financial history, previous relationships, employment verification, and anything else that seems relevant. Results in 1 to 2 weeks. Still interested? My hands shook. This felt like a betrayal. What if I'm wrong? What if he finds out I hired you? I'm very good at being invisible. No one will know unless you tell them. And if you find nothing, then you're marrying a good man and your grandmother is a paranoid old woman. Either way, you'll know for certain. I gave him my credit card information. Bennett and I had brunch plans that morning. He was unusually quiet, picking at his eggs Benedict. Your grandmother hates me, he said finally. She doesn't hate you. She's just protective. She's like that with everyone. She thinks I'm after your money. I tried to laugh. She thinks everyone is after money. It's how she survived 3 husbands and built a pharmaceutical empire. Paranoia is practically her religion, but she's wrong about me. He reached across the table, taking my hand. You know that, right? I fell in love with you before I even knew who your grandmother was. That night at the corporate retreat, when you demolished Thompson's entire quarterly forecast in front of the board, you were wearing that navy dress and you didn't take any from anyone. That's when I knew. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. I know, I said. He smiled, relieved. So, we're okay. But we weren't. Because once doubt enters a relationship, it spreads like mold in damp walls. Invisible at first, then everywhere. I started noticing small things. How Bennett always suggested expensive restaurants but never insisted on paying the full bill. How he'd mentioned casually that he needed a new suit, but his bonus hadn't come through yet. How he asked about my grandmother's estate more than he asked about my grandmother. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe my grandmother had poisoned me against him. Or maybe I was finally seeing what had been there all along. Richard Novak called 9 days later. We should meet in person, he said. I'm in Greenwich this afternoon. There's a coffee shop on Main Street, the Daily Grind. 3 p.m. Is it bad? A pause. Miss Thornwood, I think you should sit down when we talk. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a coffee I didn't drink, and sat in the back corner booth. Novak showed up exactly at 3 p.m., carrying a manila folder thick enough to be a novel. He was in his 50s, gray hair, tired eyes, the kind of face that had seen too much of humanity's worst side. He sat down without ordering anything and slid the folder across the table. I'm going to summarize first, then you can read the details. Stop me at any point if you need a minute. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Bennett Cole is not his real name. His real name is Benjamin Coulter. He changed it legally 8 years ago after his first marriage ended in divorce. His ex-wife, Patricia, filed a restraining order against him for financial abuse. He emptied their joint accounts, maxed out credit cards in her name, and disappeared for 6 months. She's still paying off the debt. My coffee cup trembled in my hands. He doesn't work for Cole Investment Group. He works there technically, but not in the capacity he's claimed. He's in sales support, essentially a glorified assistant. His salary is $87,000, not $450,000. The bonuses he mentioned don't exist. But I've seen his office. I've met his colleagues. The office is real. The title on his business cards is not. Cole Investment Group has no record of a Bennett Cole in any senior position. I spoke with Warren Cole's personal assistant. She'd never heard of him until I mentioned your grandmother. Then she said, and I quote, "Oh, Benjamin in sales. Nice kid, but not very bright." Each word felt like a physical blow. His family background is partially true. Warren Cole is his second cousin, which is how he got the job. But his father doesn't run the company. His father is Warren's younger brother, Thomas, who manages a regional car dealership in New Jersey. His mother doesn't sit on nonprofit boards. She's a dental hygienist. His sister, Vanessa, is not a corporate attorney. She's a paralegal. The ring, I whispered. Novak pulled out a photograph. I had a jeweler examine it discreetly. It's cubic zirconia in a gold-plated setting, worth approximately $400. The Tiffany box it came in was purchased empty on eBay for $50. I thought I might vomit. There's more. Novak's voice softened slightly. He has $127,000 in credit card debt across 7 different cards. 2 judgments against him for unpaid loans. His apartment, the one you visited, is rented month to month, and he's 3 months behind on rent. His landlord is preparing eviction proceedings. Why? My voice cracked. Why would he do this? He needed money badly. And you, Miss Thornwood, represent the solution to all his problems. Your grandmother's estate is public knowledge in certain circles. When he found out who you were, he saw his way out of debt and into comfort. I stared at the folder. How did you find all this? Public records, mostly. Court documents, credit reports, interviews with people who know him. Your grandmother gave me carte blanche to dig, and dig I did. I'm very good at my job. Does he know that I hired you? No. And he won't, unless you tell him. I sat in that coffee shop for 2 hours after Novak left, reading every page of the report. Bank statements showing overdrafts, court filings from his ex-wife detailing his manipulation, character references from former colleagues describing him as charming but unreliable. Photos of his real apartment, not the one he'd shown me, a studio with water-stained walls and broken furniture. Text messages he'd sent to a friend, recovered somehow by Novak's investigation. Found my retirement plan. She's loaded and has no idea I'm broke. Wedding in 6 months, then I'm set for life. I wanted to cry, but couldn't. The shock was too complete. At 7 p.m., Bennett texted, "Dinner at our place tonight. I'll cook. Our place." The apartment we'd been planning to move into together after the wedding. The lease I'd signed, the deposit I'd paid because he said his bonus was delayed. I drove there on autopilot. He answered the door with a smile, wearing an apron, the smell of garlic and wine filling the apartment. Perfect timing. Pasta primavera, your favorite. I walked past him into the living room and set the manila folder on the coffee table. "What's that?" he asked. "Your life, the real one." His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, panic, then finally cold calculation. "You hired someone to investigate me. My grandmother did. I just followed through. Jesus Christ." He ripped off the apron and threw it on the couch. That paranoid couldn't leave it alone, could she? Don't call her that. Why not? She spent 2 years trying to break us up, and now she succeeded. He ran his hands through his hair. "You don't understand. I can explain all of this." "Explain what? That your name isn't Bennett? That you don't actually work in private equity? That your entire life is a lie?" "It's not a lie. It's curated. Everyone curates their image. You think anyone presents their worst self when dating? There's a difference between putting your best foot forward and committing fraud." "Fraud?" He laughed bitterly. "I love you. That's not fraud. The ring is cubic zirconia." Silence. "I was going to replace it," he said finally, "after we got married and my situation improved. I just needed a little time." "Your situation." I felt eerily calm now, like I was watching this conversation happen to someone else. "You mean your $127,000 in debt, or the fact that you're about to be evicted? Or maybe the ex-wife you never mentioned who had to get a restraining order because you destroyed her credit." His jaw clenched. Patricia was vindictive. Stop. Just stop. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger. It felt lighter than I remembered. "Here, sell it, return it, keep it as a souvenir. I don't care." I set it on the folder and walked toward the door. "Wait." His voice changed, became soft, pleading. "Catherine, please. I know I messed up. I should have been honest from the start, but everything I feel for you is real. The love is real." I turned back to look at him, really look at him. The man I'd planned to marry, to build a life with, to grow old beside. And I realized I was looking at a stranger who happened to look like someone I loved. "Maybe you do love me," I said. "But you love my grandmother's money more, and I'll never know for sure which one you'd choose if you had to pick." I left him standing in that apartment, walked down 3 flights of stairs, and sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive. When I finally made it home to my own apartment, I found my grandmother sitting in my living room. She had a key from years ago, back when she used to check on me during college. "Pilar told me you looked upset when you left the coffee shop this afternoon," she said. "I wanted to make sure you were all right." I sat down beside her on the couch and finally let myself cry. She held me the way she used to when I was a child and had scraped my knee, steady and solid, not saying anything because there was nothing to say. You were right, I managed between sobs. About everything. I take no pleasure in being right. Not about this. How did you know? After just one dinner? She pulled back to look at me. I've been wealthy for 60 years. I've had 5 serious marriage proposals, 3 marriages, and countless men who thought they could charm their way into my bank account. You develop an instinct. The way he touched things in my house, assessing their value. The way he calculated every answer before speaking. The way he watched you like you were something he owned rather than someone he loved. She paused. And that handshake. A man who works in finance has a firm handshake. His was sweaty and weak. The grip of someone who knows they're lying. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid. You're kind and trusting. And you wanted to believe the best in someone. Those are virtues, not flaws. He's the one who should feel stupid for thinking he could fool a Thornwood woman. I almost smiled. Almost. What do I do now? Now you move forward, cancel the wedding, block his number, and live your life. And possibly change your apartment locks, because that man gave me very bad vibes, and I wouldn't put it past him to try something desperate. She was right about that, too. 3 days later, Bennett showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m., drunk, pounding on the door and shouting about second chances. My neighbor called the police. He was arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct. 1 week later, he tried to sell an interview to a tabloid about my romance with the Thornwood heiress. The tabloid called my grandmother to fact-check. She threatened to sue them into bankruptcy. The story never ran. 2 weeks later, his landlord successfully evicted him. He moved back to New Jersey with his parents. The month after that, my grandmother changed her will again. She called me to her house on a Sunday afternoon in early May. The cherry trees were in full bloom now, the garden explosive with pink and white blossoms. I'm not getting any younger, she said over tea, and that business with Bennett made me realize something. I've been thinking about my legacy all wrong. What do you mean? I've spent 60 years building a pharmaceutical empire. I have $180 million in assets, property across 3 states, and a company that employs 3,000 people. When I die, my children and grandchildren will inherit everything and probably squander half of it within a decade. She sipped her tea. Your Uncle Thomas will gamble it away. Your Aunt Louise will donate it all to that ridiculous psychic who convinced her she's descended from Egyptian royalty. Your cousins will buy yachts and vacation homes they'll visit twice. This was all probably true. But you, she continued, you have something they don't. Sense, integrity, spine, grandmother. Let me finish. I'm leaving you the controlling share of Thornwood Pharmaceuticals, 51% of the company, which includes board authority and operational control. The estate, including this house and all properties. The majority of the liquid assets. Your brothers will receive substantial trusts, more than enough to live comfortably. Your cousins will get smaller inheritances, but the heart of everything, the real power and responsibility, goes to you. I couldn't breathe. That's too much. They'll be furious. They'll be outraged, she agreed cheerfully. Your Uncle Thomas will probably sue. Your Aunt Louise will try to have me declared incompetent. Your cousins will cut you off completely. Are you prepared for that? I don't know. Then prepare yourself because this is happening. I've already met with my lawyers. The new will is being drawn up as we speak. I'm also putting provisions in place to make it airtight. Impossible to contest. When I die, you'll inherit everything, and there's nothing they can do about it. Why me? Because you're the only one who didn't ask for it. Because you walked away from a man you loved when you realized he was using you. Because you care more about doing things right than doing things easy. She set down her teacup. And because I trust you to preserve what I've built instead of destroying it. I left her house that afternoon feeling like I was carrying a weight I hadn't asked for, but couldn't refuse. My grandmother lived another 3 years. She died on a Tuesday morning in October in her sleep at the age of 92. Peaceful, the doctors said. No pain. The funeral was on a Saturday. The church was packed with business associates, employees, distant relatives, and people who'd known her at various points in her long life. She'd requested a simple service. No eulogies except from immediate family. I gave the first eulogy, talking about her strength, her intelligence, her fierce protection of the people she loved. My voice cracked twice, but I made it through. Then my Uncle Thomas gave a eulogy that was mostly about how generous and fair she'd always been, with meaningful looks at me that suggested he had no idea what was coming. After the service, everyone gathered at the estate for the reception. The lawyer, Richard Sterling, pulled immediate family into the library at 4 p.m. Me, my 2 brothers, my Uncle Thomas, my Aunt Louise, and my 4 cousins. "We're here for the reading of Helena Thornwood's last will and testament," Sterling began. He was 70, formal, and had been my grandmother's lawyer for 40 years. "I'll summarize the key provisions, then provide full documentation to each of you." My Uncle Thomas sat forward eagerly. My Aunt Louise had her hands folded in prayer position. My cousins were already planning what they'd buy with their inheritance. I could see it in their eyes. First, to her employees. Miss S. Thornwood has left a pension fund of $10 million to be distributed among all current employees based on years of service. Her housekeeper, Pilar Mendoza, receives an additional $500,000 and lifetime residence in the guest house. Surprised murmurs. Second, to her grandchildren. To Oliver and Nathan Thornwood, my brothers, she leaves a trust fund of $3 million each, to be distributed over 15 years. My brothers looked at each other, clearly disappointed, but not wanting to seem greedy. To Bradley, Vanessa, Timothy, and Rachel Morrison, my cousins, she leaves a trust fund of $500,000 each. My cousin Bradley stood up. "That's it? $500,000? My grandmother was worth nearly $200 million. Sterling didn't blink. "Please sit down, Mr. Morrison. I'm not finished." Bradley sat, his face red. Third, to her children. To Thomas Thornwood and Louise Morrison, she leaves a trust fund of $2 million each, to be distributed over 10 years, with the stipulation that neither can contest this will without forfeiting their entire inheritance. My Uncle Thomas went pale. "What the hell is this?" "Let me continue," Sterling said calmly. "Fourth, the bulk of the estate. This includes Thornwood Pharmaceuticals, all properties, investment portfolios, and remaining liquid assets valued at approximately $168 million. He paused. Miss S. Thornwood leaves this to her granddaughter, Catherine Ann Thornwood, with full operational and decisional authority. The room exploded. "That's insane. She can't do that. We'll contest this will. This is fraud." Sterling raised his voice over the chaos. "Miss S. Thornwood anticipated your reactions. She had full psychiatric evaluations performed by 3 independent doctors in the week before her death, all confirming her complete mental competency. The will has been structured to withstand any legal challenge, and I remind you all that anyone who contests will forfeit their inheritance entirely." My Uncle Thomas turned to me, his face purple with rage. "You did this. You manipulated a senile old woman into—" "Watch your mouth," I said quietly. "She was sharper at 92 than you've ever been. You don't deserve this. You're 30 years old. You have no experience running a company. I have an MBA from Wharton and 6 years of experience in corporate strategy. What do you have besides gambling debts and failed investments?" He looked like he might hit me. My brother Nathan stepped between us. My Aunt Louise was crying theatrically. "Helena was my mother. How could she betray me like this?" "She didn't betray you. She just knew you'd waste it all on that charlatan psychic who convinced you that you need $40,000 in crystals to align your chakras." My cousin Rachel spoke up, her voice shaking with anger. "We're family. You can't just take everything. I didn't take anything. It was given to me. There's a difference." "We'll fight this," Bradley said. "We'll tie this up in court for years. You'll never see a penny." Sterling cleared his throat. "Actually, Mr. Morrison, if you contest this will, you'll not only forfeit your $500,000 inheritance, but you'll also be liable for all legal fees on both sides, per the terms Mrs. Thornwood specified. I estimate that would cost you approximately $2 million in the unlikely event you actually made it to court, which you wouldn't, because this will is ironclad." The library fell silent. My Uncle Thomas stood up slowly. "You're not a Thornwood anymore. You're dead to this family." "Then I guess I'm in good company with grandmother," I replied. One by one, they filed out. My brothers lingered. "Are you okay?" Oliver asked. "I don't know yet." "For what it's worth," Nathan said, "I think she made the right choice. You're the only one who actually gave about her as a person, not a bank account." "Thanks." But yeah, Thanksgiving is going to be really awkward from now on. After everyone left, I walked through my grandmother's house alone. The place where I'd spent countless Sunday dinners, Christmas mornings, summer afternoons in the garden. The house was mine now. All of it. The responsibility felt crushing. I found a letter on her desk addressed to me in her elegant handwriting. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably feeling overwhelmed. Good. Being overwhelmed means you understand the magnitude of what I'm trusting you. Your relatives are furious by now. Let them be. Fury fades. What matters is what you do with what I've given you. I built Thornwood Pharmaceuticals to help people, to cure diseases, to ease suffering, to make the world slightly less terrible. In recent years, the company has lost its way. The board cares more about profit margins than patients. Your Uncle Thomas wanted to jack up insulin prices by 400%. I stopped him, but I won't be here to stop him forever. That's your job now. You have the power to steer this company back to its founding principles, to invest in research that helps people instead of just making money, to make medications affordable, to use our resources for good instead of greed. It won't be easy. People will fight you. They'll call you naive, idealistic, foolish. They'll try to vote you out, undermine you, sabotage your decisions. You'll make enemies of people who smile to your face, but you're strong enough to handle it. I know because you walked away from Bennett when it would have been easier to stay. You chose truth over comfort. That's the mark of a woman who can change the world. Also, I'm sorry for being such a cantankerous old bat. I know I wasn't always easy to love, but I loved you fiercely, and I'm trusting you with my life's work because you're the only one worthy of it. Don't let the bastards grind you down. All my love, grandmother. I cried reading that letter. Not the shocked tears from the Bennett breakup, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. She'd known. She'd known I would doubt myself, would wonder if I deserved this, would feel crushed by the responsibility. And she'd left me a roadmap anyway. That was 3 years ago. Today, I'm 33. I'm the CEO of Thornwood Pharmaceuticals. We've cut insulin prices by 60%, invested $50 million in cancer research, and launched a program providing free medications to low-income patients. Profits are down 8%, but we're actually helping people, which was the entire point. My Uncle Thomas did sue. The lawsuit was dismissed within 4 months. He hasn't spoken to me since. My Aunt Louise sends me threatening letters occasionally, all of which I forward to my lawyers. My cousins blocked me on social media and tell people I stole their inheritance. I sleep fine at night. My brothers and I have dinner once a month. They've invested their trust funds wisely and never asked me for money, which I respect. I never married. After Bennett, I developed trust issues that took 2 years of therapy to work through. I date occasionally, but I'm in no hurry. The company keeps me busy. Pilar still lives in the guest house. She's 71 now, and we have tea together every Sunday afternoon in the garden beneath the cherry trees. Last week, a young woman came to my office. She was 24, bright-eyed, fresh out of business school. She wanted to pitch me a startup idea about affordable prescription delivery services. During her pitch, I watched the way she spoke. Confident but not arrogant, passionate but realistic. She reminded me of myself at that age, before Bennett, before I learned that people weren't always what they seemed. After she finished, I asked her a question my grandmother once asked me. What's your client retention rate? She didn't miss a beat. We're too new to have retention data yet, but our pilot program had 94% customer satisfaction and preliminary surveys suggest 87% would sign up for recurring service. I smiled. When can you start? Her eyes went wide. You're investing? I'm offering you a job. Head of new initiatives, $120,000 salary, full benefits, budget to build your team. You'll report directly to me. I don't know what to say. Say yes, then prove you deserve it. She said yes. As she left my office, practically floating, I thought about the chain of events that led me here. My grandmother's paranoia that turned out to be wisdom. Bennett's betrayal that turned out to be a blessing. The inheritance that I never wanted but now couldn't imagine giving up. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd ignored my grandmother's warning. If I'd married Bennett, had his children, built a life based on lies. Would I have ever discovered the truth? Would I have spent decades wondering why something felt slightly off, unable to name it? Or would love have been enough to compensate for the fraud underneath? I'll never know. And I'm grateful for that. What I do know is this. My grandmother rewrote her will the day after she met my fiancé because she saw through him instantly. My cousins didn't understand why until the funeral, when they learned that character matters more than blood, and that the old woman they'd dismissed as paranoid was actually the smartest person any of us had ever known. She saved me from destroying my life. And then she trusted me with hers. I keep her letter in my desk drawer. On hard days, when the board is fighting me, or the quarterly earnings disappoint shareholders, or my uncle's lawyers file yet another frivolous motion, I read it again. Don't let the bastards grind you down. I won't, grandmother. I promise. Last month, I established the Helena Thornwood Memorial Scholarship Fund. Full rides to business school for women from low-income backgrounds. The first recipient is a 22-year-old from the Bronx whose mother died of diabetes because she couldn't afford insulin. The irony isn't lost on me. The company that made medication unaffordable is now paying for someone to learn how to make it affordable. My grandmother would have appreciated that. The pharmaceutical industry hates me. Other CEOs call me naive, say I'm destroying shareholder value, predict the company will collapse within a decade. They might be right, but at least I'll collapse knowing I tried to do something good instead of just profitable. My Uncle Thomas gave an interview last year to a business magazine. He said I was running my grandmother's legacy into the ground, that I was too young and idealistic to understand real business. He predicted I'd be ousted within 2 years. The journalist asked him why he thought my grandmother chose me instead of him. Honestly, I think she'd lost her mind by the end. Dementia, probably. She couldn't have been thinking clearly. When I read that interview, I laughed so hard I cried. My grandmother had 3 psychiatric evaluations in her final week, all confirming she was sharper than most people half her age. She'd named every board member, recited the company's quarterly earnings from memory, and discussed pharmaceutical patent law with her lawyer for 2 hours without notes. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was giving me a chance to prove that making money and making a difference didn't have to be mutually exclusive. That success could be measured in lives improved instead of just profits increased. That a company could be powerful and ethical at the same time. I'm still trying to prove her right. Some days are better than others. Last quarter, we launched a partnership with 3 African nations to provide antiretroviral drugs for HIV patients at cost. We'll lose $12 million this year on that program alone. Wall Street analysts downgraded our stock, but 40,000 people who would have died will live instead. I'd call that a win. My grandmother used to say that wealth was a responsibility, not a reward. That having money meant you had the power to change things, and that power came with the obligation to use it wisely. I used to think that was just something rich people said to feel better about being rich. Now I understand it differently. Wealth is a tool. You can use it to build or destroy, to help or harm, to lift people up or keep them down. My Uncle Thomas wanted to use it to buy bigger houses and faster cars. My Aunt Louise wanted to use it to fund her delusions. My grandmother wanted to use it to leave the world better than she found it. And now, so do I. Yesterday I visited her grave for the first time in months. The headstone is simple, just her name and dates, the way she requested. No flowery epitaphs or false sentiments. Just Helena Margaret Thornwood, 1931-2024. I brought cherry blossoms from the garden and laid them on the grave. I'm still figuring this out, I told her. The company, the family drama, all of it. Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. Other days I feel like I'm actually making a difference. I hope you're proud of me. I hope I'm doing this right. The wind rustled through the cemetery trees. Probably just wind, but maybe not. I like to think she's still watching, still protecting me the way she did when she saw through Bennett in a single dinner, still guiding me toward better choices, smarter decisions, a life lived with integrity instead of convenience. Or maybe I've just internalized her voice so completely that it's become my own. Either way, it works. I drove back to the office after the cemetery visit, signed off on 3 new research grants, approved the expansion of our patient assistance program, fired a board member who'd been taking kickbacks from suppliers, just another day preserving my grandmother's legacy, and absolutely crushing my Uncle Thomas's dreams. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't living well. It's living ethically while others fail morally. It's succeeding on your own terms while they insist you're doing it wrong. It's changing the world in small, meaningful ways while they chase money that will never make them happy. My grandmother understood that. Now finally, so do I. Bennett tried to contact me 6 months ago. He sent a letter to my office addressed to Catherine Thornwood, CEO. The title must have killed him to write. The letter was 3 pages of apologies and explanations. He'd been desperate. He'd made mistakes. He was a different person now. He'd gotten therapy, cleaned up his finances, turned his life around. He wasn't asking for money or second chances. He just wanted me to know he was sorry and that he'd never stopped regretting losing me. I read the letter twice, then filed it away. Not in the trash, but in a folder marked closed chapters, because that's what Bennett is now. A closed chapter. A lesson learned. A reminder that my grandmother's paranoia was actually just pattern recognition, honed over 6 decades of watching people reveal their true selves when money entered the equation. Would I have learned that lesson if she'd just told me? Probably not. I would have dismissed her as cynical, jaded, unable to see the good in people. But by forcing me to discover it myself, by hiring that investigator and letting me read the evidence with my own eyes, she gave me something more valuable than money or property or company shares. She gave me clarity, and clarity, it turns out, is worth more than love. At least the kind of love that comes with a price tag attached. Real love, the kind my grandmother had for me, doesn't calculate cost-benefit ratios. It doesn't weigh inheritance against affection. It doesn't smile while planning to betray you the moment the ring is on your finger. Real love protects you, even when protection means breaking your heart temporarily to save you from shattering it permanently. That's what my grandmother did. That's what I'm trying to pay forward now, through scholarships and patient programs and research grants that might never turn a profit, but will definitely save lives. I'm 33 years old, running a pharmaceutical empire I never expected to inherit, fighting battles I never trained for, making decisions that affect thousands of people I'll never meet. Some days I feel like I'm drowning. Most days I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and every day I'm grateful my grandmother saw through Bennett Cole's perfect smile and expensive suit to the desperate lying man underneath. She saved my life by destroying my engagement, and then she gave me the tools to save other lives by entrusting me with her company. That's the thing about real wealth. It's not about the money itself. It's about what you do with it when you have it. Whether you hoard it selfishly or share it strategically. Whether you use it to build walls around yourself or bridges toward others. My grandmother built bridges her whole life. Now I'm maintaining them. And occasionally, when my Uncle Thomas is being particularly insufferable, I burn the bridges he tries to rebuild toward me. That part, I admit, I enjoy. Last week I got a LinkedIn message from Patricia, Bennett's ex-wife. She'd heard about him trying to contact me and wanted to make sure I was okay. We met for coffee. She was 38, a child psychologist, remarried to a teacher she'd met at a workshop. She'd paid off the debts Bennett left her and was now helping other women who'd been financially abused. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for not giving him a second chance. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me." "I know, but it still matters. Every woman who sees through him is a woman he can't hurt, and maybe eventually he'll run out of targets and have to actually face himself. Or he'll just get better at lying." She smiled sadly. "Probably. But at least we're both free of him. We exchanged numbers and promised to stay in touch. I don't know if we will. Sometimes the only connection you need with someone is the shared experience of surviving the same predator. But it felt good to meet her, to see that life continues after you walk away from someone you loved, that you can recover from betrayal, rebuild your credit and your confidence, and find someone who actually deserves you. She gave me hope that maybe someday I trust someone again enough to let them fully into my life. Maybe. Right now, I'm content with my work, my brothers, my Sunday teas with Pilar, and my grandmother's ghost whispering warnings whenever someone seems too good to be true. It's a good life. Not the one I planned, but better than the one I avoided. And that's the real inheritance my grandmother left me. Not the money or the company or the properties, but the wisdom to recognize wolves in expensive suits. The courage to walk away from comfort when it's built on lies. The strength to accept responsibility I never asked for and wield it with integrity instead of ego. She made me CEO of my own life long before she made me CEO of her company. And for that, more than anything else, I'm grateful. Tomorrow we're launching a new drug that treats a rare pediatric cancer. It took 8 years to develop and will cost the company $40 million annually to manufacture and distribute. We'll sell it at cost to any family that needs it. The board fought me for 6 months on this decision. They said it would set a dangerous precedent, that other companies would expect similar pricing, that we couldn't sustain this business model. I told them my grandmother didn't build this company to sustain a business model. She built it to sustain lives. We took a vote. I won by 1 vote. Mine, technically, since I control 51% of shares. My Uncle Thomas called me a tyrant. I called him a capitalist sociopath. We don't talk much at holidays anymore, but tomorrow 17 children who would have died will get treatment instead. Their parents won't have to choose between saving their child and bankrupting their family. They'll get both. That's worth being called a tyrant. That's worth every board fight, every angry shareholder, every business magazine predicting my downfall. My grandmother understood that the true measure of a life wasn't how much you accumulated, but what you did with what you had. Whether you used your power to take or to give, whether you built monuments to yourself or foundations for others. She built both, actually. The company bears her name, but it serves people who will never know who she was. That's legacy. Everything else is just inheritance. And inheritance, I've learned, is only valuable if you're worthy of it. I'd like to think I'm proving I am, 1 patient program at a time, 1 research grant at a time, 1 decision that prioritizes people over profits. My grandmother rewrote her will the day after she met my fiancé because she knew I could be more than Bennett Cole's wife, more than a woman who married into wealth, more than someone who inherited money and spent it on herself. She knew I could be someone who used wealth to change systems instead of just living comfortably within them. She bet everything on that belief. I'm spending every day trying to prove her right, and when I fail, because I do fail regularly, I remember what she wrote in that letter. Don't let the bastards grind you down. I won't, grandmother. I'll grind them down first. Ethically, legally, and with maximum quarterly earnings impact. That's the Thornwood way now, and I wouldn't have it any other way.